Right. Welcome to the Transport and Infrastructure Committee, dated the 10th of May 2023. And I will actually say the council karakia. Whaka ta ki toho ki te uru. Whaka ta ka te ho te kutonga. Ki e mā kina ki I tā. Ki amata rata ra ki tai. A hi a ki o a ti a tia kua. He te hia huka hia ho hu. Ti hei mori ora. So, welcome, and I'll ask for any apologies. I think we've got a full house. No apologies. Identification of any urgent general business. None's been brought to my attention. Conflicts of interest. None has been brought to my attention as well. And we have a public forum, and we have Mr. John Ryan from Perryman's Road. If you'd like to actually come up to the front, John, and give us a presentation. We do have to put a time frame around it, so we'll say, just round about 5 to 10 minutes, if that's fine.
I'll do my best.
Okay, thank you.
Do I stand or
no, sit, please. And you've got a red light in front of you.
Which button on the right? On what basis?
That's it.
Have that down. Is that any better?
Fine.
Very good. Well, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and I'm pleased to be able to be here to give a small presentation. Looking around the room, there's some familiar faces that probably were here when I gave this presentation in 2013. Some of you may be here in 2015. Some of you may be here in 2022, but I'm told by the council front desk that we've got 3 new councillors here, so I'll be delighted to unload onto you some vital information regarding regarding Perryman's Road. The reason for our meeting here today is that the council voted to seal the road, and now the staff want it closed from vehicular traffic at the State Highway 75 junction, leaving it accessible only to walkers and bikers. There's a lot of history to this situation, and that historically the staff proposed that the road be closed and not sealed, which did not go down well with the local interests. However, in May last year, a council resolution was passed that it should be sealed and continue use. The repeat of closing the road brings to mind whether the staff actually even intend to seal it, but we'll talk about that later. The reasons for the proposed closure are that there is a safety concern by the staff with the intersection of Perryman's Road and State Highway 75, and there are several local residents concerned that sealing this piece of Perryman's Road will increase the speed of traffic further up the road past their properties. In 2013, I commissioned a traffic design group to draw up an engineering report, and I thought of this through yesterday, and I hope you've all got a copy of it. And I'll just, if you don't mind, I'll just go through the key points which I think are very relevant, because in my mind, none of the information has changed and the details are all relevant. And there's essentially the intersection we're talking about behind me. The background of the report is that they did some research on the traffic volumes on State Highway. They refer to the closing of Perryman's Road for the health and safety needs of approximately 40 houses in the adjoining Tidap Township. They also mentioned that the existing unsealed section is about 480 metres, and there is a wide disparity in the estimated costs of sealing the road from an initial $30,000 to the council's most recent appraisal of $300,000. The report outlines that there are difficulties riding bicycles on gravel roads, and there is no footpath indicating that both cyclists and walkers are a relatively rare occurrence down this walkway, and that is a fact. My observation of the road will be that it is not currently used by recreational cyclists at all in its gravel state, and there will be less than 10 walkers going up there in a normal weekend. There's an opportunity here to change the recreational flow of walkers and cyclists down Perryman's Road with the ceiling, and much of this would be to join the pathway what has been constructed along the riverbank from the Anglican Church to the Taidat Domain. In the meantime, the committed cyclists use Ryan's Bridge and Taidat Lincoln Road, which then allows them to avoid going over the State Highway 75 bridge on their passage to the favoured Old Taidat Road cycleway. In addition, if pedestrians and cyclists were to use this section of Perryman's Road immediately west of State Highway 75, they would be likely to cross the bridge to gain access to or from the Taidat village. This will be a road safety concern because the bridge does not have footpaths or cycle lanes. It does not even have an effective shoulder outside the 6 metre wide carriageway edge lines. There is also an issue with the adjoining intersection of the State Highway 75 and Taidat Lincoln Road thoroughfare, which is also the central retail point of Taidat Township. I refer again to the narrow bridge, pedestrian way over the bridge lacking, and the blocking of State Highway 75 by traffic turning right onto Taidat Lincoln Road. The contribution of a fully functional Perryman's Road intersection is actually fundamental to the safety of not only both intersections, but the Taidat Township retail entity. The review by the Traffic Design Group outlines that the 10-year crash history period that they were dealing with does not suggest any safety issues related to the proximity of Perryman's Road and the Lincoln Taidat Road intersection. In addition, there were no crashes on that intersection in the 10-year period. In particular, there were no issues related to confusion and conflicts between turning vehicles and their intention to use one or other of the intersections from State Highway 75. The main issue in that report appears to relate to the speed of southbound vehicles entering the township, and since this report has been drawn up, the 50-kilometre speed limit sign has been moved about 100 metres further north on State Highway 75 towards Christchurch, and this has reduced the vehicle speeds through the township. The report concludes by saying that they do not believe that the closing of the Perryman's Road intersection will resolve the safety accident history on the Perryman's Road intersection because there has been none. Furthermore, the report does not consider that there are any other road safety issues that require the closure. Closure of the intersection to vehicles is apparently supported by Wakakatai Transport Agency, and that's by a letter obtained through your sources dated the 17th of October 2022, subject to appropriate consultation with the community, appropriate design of the resultant road environment, and following the appropriate legal processing meeting the requirements of the traffic control devices. In other words, closing of this intersection is not a requirement from Wakakatai, but to me they are flexible in the response of both the council and the locals. Mm. It's stated that there are Wakakatai construction issues, but the apron roadway between State Highway 75 in front of us here and Perryman's Road is already sealed 25 metres wide at the joining point for a distance back 15 metres to where the gravel starts. There is excellent access to and from this entry point of Perryman's Road, and it is an elevated site with far better visibility than the intersection of the nearby State Highway 75, Taidat Lincoln Road intersection. In other words, the Perryman's Road intersection with State Highway 75, in my personal view, does not require any further construction for Wakakatai. I note from your correspondence there have been 35 respondents for consultation purposes, and I'm not impressed with the method that these have been presented. The team that have some opposition to the closure didn't just have some opposition, they had very definite opposition because I had spoken to most of them and was able to observe most of their documentation. I note that your paper states that not all were total opposition, although I doubt the veracity of that comment. Your papers also state that 28 people do not have any opposition, in inverted commas, to the closure. The term do not have any opposition is not taken kindly because I believe that this is almost manipulative wording. The use of double negatives is not appreciated by anyone with my limited range of legal experience in disputes and arbitration. The whole motive in wording this document could probably be best described as cynical manipulation from a very modest range of respondents, all 39 of them, some of which live completely on the opposite side of Taitap and rarely have ever travelled down Perryman's Road. On the other hand, there are a group of regular users, including residents, farmers and businessmen, who consider this road fundamental access for their day-to-day well-being, and I can assure you that they have very definite opposition to the closure. As an extension of our discussion, I've actually sought legal advice on the matter, and advice has come back with comments that any road stopping must be achieved using either the Local Government Act or the Public Works Act. Let's discount the Public Works Act, where the Minister of Land may declare pretty much what he likes, and subject to arbitration and negotiation, everything happens. But under the Local Government Works Act, however, the following key steps need to be taken if you're going to close that road. Firstly, point one, any intention to stop a road must be publicly notified, and the notice must include reasons and the intended use for the separated land, which marginally applies in this situation when the road is stopped. Secondly, any person may object to the proposal and is entitled to be heard by the Territorial Authority on that objection. I believe this goes beyond the recently activated consultation process. Thirdly, unless the Territorial Authority allows the objection or the objection is withdrawn, it must be referred to the Environment Court for determination. There is little guidance. Fourthly, there is little guidance in the Local Government Act as to the factors other than those referred to in the 10th schedule, which means that the court may have regard to a wide range of relative factors. Fifthly, in particular, the central issue is the need for the road for public use, not the need for the stopping. In addition, the courts will consider the position of any person who needs the road for access or otherwise uses it, the relevant provisions of the district plan, and the public interest in the retention or stopping of the road. And the final legal point, court's determination is final, and if the proposal is rejected, it may not be reviewed for a period of 2 years. In summary then, from a legal point, it is signalled that Selwyn District Council, that consultation only on sealing Perryman's Road, is inconsistent with the Local Government Act and the Selwyn District Council's own significance and engagement policy. Any submission on the sealing of the road should use collaborative language and get local residents closer to the decision-making process rather than the more offhanded consultation approach. If challenged, the consultation is unsuccessful, the same points could be raised in the Environment Court if the road is later attempted to be stopped. The legal details are applicable to the most recent consultation attempt, and whilst there will be costs involved in an Environment Court procedure, do not underestimate the capacity of some of the residents further up Perryman's Road. They are livid at the proposed closure, for they have the capacity to participate in any hearing, although legal ruling of the court has costs which could be borne to either party, and this can sometimes be a game breaker. On a more local basis, we've been progressive from the Taitap Residents Association and have discussed differences of opinion with some of the objectors. The initial objector I went to personally because I know him and took a full collection of correspondence and engineering reports for him to study. His main objection was that the sealing of the road would mean that the traffic going past his gate, which was 500 metres beyond the end of the newly sealed portion, would be travelling faster than after the seal than it would if the road was still gravel. I suggested to him that a speed limit sign restricting the speed along the first kilometre of Perryman's Road, including the gravel section and his 500 metres, to 60 kilometres an hour would solve that problem, as it has done outside my gate on Taitap Lincoln Road, where traffic historically drove at 100 kilometres an hour, and it now ranges between 80 kilometres an hour and 60 kilometres an hour, and it is regularly policed. His reply a week later at my place was to say that he was unaware of the local business use of the road, and that if it was sealed, it would be acceptable to him if judder bars were installed at either end of the road. My reply to this was that both the judder bars and the speed limit would solve his objection and was worthy of further conjecture.
Excuse me, Mr. Ryan, have you got much longer to go, please?
About 2 minutes.
Okay, I'll give you 2 minutes.
A further objector who considered increased speed as a result of sealed activity lived 2 kilometres beyond the end of the gravel section, and I considered that his objection was irrelevant. Elsewhere in Selwyn District, I'm aware of roads that have been closed, and they have been more on traffic design than on personal interest. I refer to the intersections of Tankridge Road and Boundary Road with Selwyn Road, which were closed off possibly 10 years ago, maybe even more, when traffic design prior to the installation of the motorway was requiring Selwyn Road to be a major vehicle access way between Rolleston and Christchurch. The area closed off on Tankridge Road was probably less than 50 metres and inconvenienced no one. The area on Boundary Road was longer than this, but took out the intersection of Boundary Road and Selwyn Road at the corner also of Rattletrack Road, I think it is, away from a full intersection on a corner of Selwyn Road where the traffic at that point in time could legally travel at 100 kilometres an hour. I refer back to Perryman's Road intersection, and this safety and speed does not apply because the speed limit on the State Highway 75, where the intersection is with that road, is now 50 kilometres an hour, and any of these speed risks are irrelevant. In summary then, I've spoken on behalf of the Taitap Community Association and their wish for the council to make an investment in the Taitap district to seal the road. We're astonished at the intention of the council to spend $300,000 to seal the road and then close it off so that it cannot be utilised for anything other than occasional cyclists and infrequent walkers. This is a spiteful reply and almost retaliatory to the council's decision to seal the road in the first place.
Excuse me, Mr. Ryan, I've given you 2 minutes.
One sentence and I'm done. The health and safety risks of attending to the gravel roadway have already been accounted for by the council's decision last year to seal the road, and we believe the engineering report and the sealing of Perryman's Road will be for the future of Taitap Township. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Now I'm going to ask councillors if they've got any questions of clarification, and I would like to highlight to the meeting that we have agreed that we are going to be sealing the gravel road area of Perryman's Road. The issue that is on today's agenda is about closing that intersection to the public. So the two are treated as totally separate issues, and this one only refers to the proposed closing that was in the agenda. So any points of clarification from councillors, please? And your rules of engagement, 1 question. So if you've got 2, please answer them all at once. So,
John,
Malcolm.
I have 2 questions for you. And I do remember us being here some time ago on the same subject, John. Very succinctly put as well. So your recent survey consultation period, how many of the Perryman's Road residents do you know of who took part in that 39 people? Respondents to that survey.
I don't have a collection of the details in front of me.
I just thought in conversation with the locals, you might have an idea.
I mean, there were a whole group along the Taitap Lincoln Road, and there were some contractors who used the Perryman's Road, and there are other farmers up there. Plus, there were also at least 3 residents I spoke to in the Levington Close area who were living at the proposal.
Thanks, John, for clarifying that. Now, you talk about local business use, so you were talking agricultural contractors and farming activities. Is that what you're talking?
Yeah, I am.
Okay. So I was wanting to get an idea of what the business uses were, and that's the only 2 I could think of.
There's quite a lot. Do you mind if I explain something on your map?
Yes, you can go and explain something on the board, please.
Yeah. On this intersection here on the Taitap Lincoln Road, that bridge there is only 6 metres wide. We've got a contractor that lives up the road here with a large combine harvester and a 30-foot trailer that he pulls behind it. And when he comes along here, he comes around, decides to go to Green Park or wherever it is, comes around that corner. If traffic's coming from Akaroa, he stops here, but his trailer ends up there. So effectively, he's blocked State Highway 75.
Right.
Now, that's a major issue. I've also come across other people, including the editor of the Selwyn District Times, who says when he's coming here from the Taitap Hotel to go to Lincoln, such as the difficult angle around here, and many of them, that he actually prefers to go left around that road there, down past School Road and back onto Tighthead Road that way. Third point I'd make with regard to this guy here is if he could get down here
and then he's got to sit down.
You've got these two layer side areas here, both on either side of the highway. And I bring gear down here and I sit there quietly when I see the road through there clear. And I just go straight from there, straight down Pyramids Road.
Okay.
And my gear is safe.
Thank
you, John. Thanks for clearing that up for me.
Okay, thank you. Sophie.
Yeah, Kia sir. Thank you very much. So my question is more around the judder bars that you mentioned. But first, I'll note when we made that decision 2 years ago, I think it was at the LTP, it was noted during the discussion that Waka Kotahi were quite likely to say that they would close the road if we sealed it. And that was part of our discussion, and we decided that it was a risk, and we voted for it anyway, obviously, because we voted to seal the road.
And yet Waka Kotahi's reply is quite open. It's not definitive they want it closed.
Exactly. That's why we've noted that they may decide to close it.
May's the word.
Yeah. Anyway, so my question was around judder bars that was mentioned by your neighbour.
Yep.
So as somebody who has agricultural machinery going down there, how would you feel about judder bars? And also we quite often hear feedback from people around things like judder bars saying that they thought it would slow people down, but actually they can't tolerate the noise. So I'm just wondering what your thoughts around judder bars would be.
Look, I'm pretty relaxed. If someone would come to my way of thinking by offering them a judder bar, I didn't think it was actually too bad a price to pay. But you've got steep judder bars and you've got low level judder bars, and you've got to bear in mind there's only one house along this section to be sealed, so that's unlikely. If there's any scraping on the judder bars, that's unlikely to happen. But look, I just said it was an option worth pursuing.
Thank you. Elizabeth.
Hi, you did answer one of my questions. One of my questions is that your road uses an agricultural bypass, which clearly it is. My other part of the question is that little bridge that's between Perryman's Road, we can't see it on your picture,
Yep.
between Perryman's Road and the Lincoln Tie-Tap Road. Has that ever flooded across, preventing access?
Sorry, is that what?
Is that bridge ever flooded over
No.
when the stream gets high?
No.
Okay.
Thank you. Nicole.
Thanks for coming to speak to us. Just looking at this report that you gave us, I mean, it's 10 years old.
Yep.
Do you have any idea of what the traffic volumes on Taitapu Road?
I'm sure the ones on the front page would have increased by now.
Yeah, and that's what you don't have any
Mind
idea.
you, last year and the year before that have gone down, wouldn't they? With COVID.
Yeah, so I mean, it's difficult to know with what numbers we're talking about, and you haven't heard directly from Waka Kotahi about or anything as to why what their concerns are about.
No, I only took the Waka Kotahi comments out of the paper, out of your working paper.
Yeah. Now with the community consultation, did you take part? You've taken part in that. What did it involve? The community consultation that's written in our report.
Well, I go to the Citizens Association meetings is where I go, and we discuss things there. In terms of community consultation, my understanding was that would be when all we were offered was consultation asked by the 23rd of March, and that was the end of the consultation. And that was by writing rather than an open forum.
So it was a letter addressed to each resident. How was it? It was just okay. Grant just said it was a website.
Sorry?
Grant just said it was a website based one.
Yeah.
So you talked. So you said that the Taitapu Community Committee wants it left open. Is that right?
That's correct.
So how many are represented from the community?
Well, at the last meeting we had at the committee, I think we had 25 people around the table, but that was a larger group than is normally there.
Okay, and that was because of your discussing this, or
about Pyramid's Road, or
It's been a topic for the Taidat Community Association for about 30 years. It's never actually gone off the books. We'd just like to get it sealed and the road open so that we can consider the job done.
okay, thank you. That's Shane.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Mr. Ryan. You mentioned no accidents in the last 10 years. Is that from 2013 to now? There's been no accidents in that particular intersection, and has there been any accidents on the major one?
Yeah, there's been no accidents on this intersection ever. And the one mentioned, there was one mentioned, a lady came from town at the end of the bridge there, but that was hardly considered to be part of the intersection. This one here, I can't recall a death on that intersection.
Yeah.
Right, speed limits are down now. There was a pile up there about 2 weeks ago. They wiped out this yard right here, but it was well back here. I rang someone this morning to try and get some background to the accident, but no one was able to come up with it. But it's a dangerous corner, and it's all because this road here, coming when you're standing on that side there, you've got about 240 degrees to look through to see whether the road's clear.
Yeah.
Top of it, you can see where that car is parked there. Well, just 4 range of cars there on either side of the road, so visibility is not good.
Thank you.
From that intersection there.
Okay,
I got you.
Visibility from here is excellent.
okay.
Thanks, John. And just maybe a question for staff around difference between public and residential use. Is there a difference?
We will answer that question when we discuss our report, if you like.
Okay, and Phil, do you want to make a comment? Question?
Sorry to clarify on the crashes, but I'll do that to start later.
Okay, no, that's fine. Look, thank you very much, Mr. Ryan, for your presentation. And we will bring the reports through after the chairpersons and group managers report for discussion.
Thank you very much.
Stay so. Okay. The next item on the agenda is the confirmation of the public minutes of the previous meeting held on the 29th of March. Thanks, Sam. Over second, Malcolm. I do have a correction to those minutes, and I've handed it through. It's just on page 12, with regards to, it's just grammatical error, with regards to the funding model that we adopted for emergency management. So I just like to move that there is a correction to those minutes. Would the mover and seconder agree to those corrections? Yes. Okay. All in favour, say aye. Those against, none. Carried. Right. Any matters arising from the public minutes? Elizabeth.
Yeah, I actually just wanted to ask a question that I'd highlighted in here. So it says the chair noted the central government has introduced a new bill around the severe weather. I just wanted to know if you have a name for that bill, please. Just wanting to know what that bill is.
I named it.
And which sections it contained within the bill, if anybody can tell us now.
It's a recovery management.
So that Sophie? Severe emergency.
Are you happy with the response? Emergency management. Next one is Malcolm, Grant, sorry.
Madam Chair, I wanted to speak after the public forum just to let the table know that I will be seeking amendments to the paper on the Pyramid's Road when it comes up.
Okay, thank you. Malcolm.
Yes, last meeting, as you can see, I referred to corridor management plans and how things were happening. I'd just like to note that within 2 days of that coming out in the newspaper, I had 68 cones in front of my property. Were put out on a Thursday. They were from Ashburton Contracting. I think they put out in front of my property. They took away all the parking on both sides of Springs Road right through the weekend, and over the Monday of Anzac Day, and the work actually started on the Wednesday of the next week. They worked in the middle of the night to put a drain across the road, so we had road cones out for about 4 days before anything was done. And they remained out there for at least 12 hours after the work was actually done as well. So, that was a little moment. But I have a question, and that is, who approves these traffic management plans? Come to our staff to approve, I believe.
Yes.
And I would just like to think that we might do a little more diligence on what we're approving and when things are happening.
Okay.
Can I,
So I'll get the asset manager to comment on that one, please.
Group management second. Thank you, Councillor Lyle. We have 2 staff currently approving traffic management plans, and as you'll note from the head of operational delivery report, we audit a significant number of work sites, and we score them and rate them and provide feedback. But there's a significant number of road closure and traffic management plans out there at any one time, and so it's logistically quite challenging. We do shut down sites that are unsafe, and we do provide feedback back to ones that are unreasonably long in terms of cones. So I just remind councillors, if you have any issues like that, let us know, and through Snatch and Save or by service request, and we'll have a look at that. Okay.
Now the next one, David, have you got your button on? Because it's come up on my. Okay. Trying to be efficient here.
Sorry,
Okay, Nicole.
yeah, sorry, I've lost it. Just realised on page 8, I talk about a report to come back regards how council plans future capacity stuff. Was it needed to go on an actions table, or where does that sit? So
Page 8, what paragraph, please?
second from the bottom, the chair said a report will come back with regards to looking at how council plans for future capacity and our infrastructure to the next meeting.
Will allow further discussion.
Is that, I don't remember reading that in there. I just wonder whether it needs to go on an action table or something. Just a question.
Yeah, a good question.
Yeah,
actually.
it was, Deborah brought it up, asking about capacity, infrastructure capacity.
Yeah, future capacity for our infrastructure.
Yeah.
With regards to our growth, infrastructure, and allowing for growth. So can we put that on a matters under action, please, and then we can bring it back and have it as a report.
Yeah, the head of asset management's got that on the work list to do.
It's just as good to have it as in a table. And
Okay, thanks for bringing that up.
That's right.
Okay. Right, now the chairperson's report I'll take as read. Any questions? No, I'll move the chairperson's report. Do I have a seconder? Shane, thank you. All in favour say aye.
Aye.
Those against? Carried. Group manager's report. Murray Washington.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair and councillors. Again, I'll take as read, but I just want to highlight a number of points. Firstly, under clause 3, I'd like to introduce Kamal Narayan, who is the head of Capital Works, who started with us a week and a half ago. And so that brings, that actually completes the appointment of that next year. And in attendance today, if you haven't met them, Mike Patterson, the road safety advisor, and Ravi Venkapaul, who's our road safety engineer. So we are fully resourced now in the road safety space, along with Sam Charland, who's our school road safety advisor. Touching on stimulus fundings in the operational delivery report, that was on the Crown Infrastructure report. Wakaya Hut, full exemption, and Murray will be talking about that later. Quite disappointing under the reset of a water program to lose tranche 2 of our Better Off funding. That's a $16.77 million hole in our expectations. And it means that if you believe where we prioritise tranche 1 funding to lead into a tranche 2 project, that avenue has been closed off. So it's very disappointing. I do understand that we will be getting further information from DIA and very shortly around about the Better Off funding and the implications of that. And that's all I want to comment on that.
Okay. All right. Thanks very much. Any queries or questions on the group manager's report? No. Another mover for that report that it be received. Sam, Nicole, all in favour say aye.
Aye.
Carried. Right. Now we go to tab 9, which is the operational delivery. Thanks, Gareth. Now, just with regards to this report, because we have an amendment that has been proposed to be moved for B, when we come to the resolutions, we will actually separate them from A and B, so they will be taken separately. That allows for the amendment to be considered.
Sorry, just saw your papers here today. Good afternoon. Before I launch into the report, I'd just like to take the opportunity to advise councillors, as Murray's just introduced the road safety team, and particularly Mike. Recently, last week, Mike was part of the team that was awarded the Cedric Rogers Memorial Award for Leadership in Road Safety at the Safe Sustainable Transport Conference in Auckland. And the citation that came through from them, so I've now gone and lost, was obviously lots of other words, but summarises: congratulations to your organisation for employing a champion who's leading the way in the field of their work, which obviously around road safety, which great recognition for council and the work that we're doing in the road safety space. So. Okay, well, that's the positive stuff. Into my report. Okay, in terms of operational delivery, I'll skim through them section by section. Some may obviously be further discussions, so we might need to sort of park them along, decide as we go. Pretty much formatted the structure of the report now and various feedback from councillors as we've got to grips with this. So run straight through that into the operational delivery area. Typically, I've forgotten my glasses, so sorry if I'm blinking away here. 4.2, 4.3 in terms of the thank you. That's better. 4.2, 4.3 in terms of the KPIs, and all I say is that all our term contracts are functioning quite well at the moment. Obviously, there's always things to look at and things to improve, but overall we're in a pretty good space. In section 5, I highlight a summary of key things that we've been working on. In section 6, there's just a few high level things which we're keeping a close watch on, which are very much a wait and see how some of these things evolve. Perryman's Road, I suspect, will be a discussion, and in section 8, there's the extract from the Crown Infrastructure Partners report, which was very positive on the completion of the Darfield to Pines pipeline. Any questions?
Are there any questions from any of the councillors? Okay, Sam, you're first.
Yeah, just a question around the bitumen and the cost to our roading contract and thinking about like it feels like at the moment we just know that cost will probably increase, but we've got no idea where that sits. How do we find out more in that space? How do we make sure that our budgets as we move into the long-term plan are appropriate? Can you give us some idea of the plans you've put in place to try and mitigate what could be quite a large risk?
We don't know, and nobody knows what the cost impact of the bitumen is. Waka Kotahi, as you can read from I included the press release for councillors to see there. Waka Kotahi are quite buoyant and quite confident that they, by opening the market up with Z Energy's exit, that the market will be plentiful and we will see more price competition in the market. Naturally, with uncertainty, contractors are seeing it differently. We don't know where that's going to land right now. Any cost increase we have to bear as cost fluctuations in our fixed NLTP from Waka Kotahi each year, and there is no allowance for any more increase in bitumen. It does increase. This year or in the past 12 months, saw a significant increase in bitumen as the world oil price went up this time last year. We just don't know where it's going to land. So I did approach HEB, who's obviously our contractor, and included that. They were comfortable with that statement that I put in the report. That's the statement that they're putting, they and other major contractors are putting in all tenders right now.
Thank you. And this report, are we going to touch on Pyramid's Road now as part of the report?
No, I said we'll take it in two separate chances.
Come back to that.
We'll come back to that one. Thank you. Right, Grant, you were next.
Just talking about the traffic management audits, I had some feedback. Great job you're doing, but one of the challenges now is that the cost of traffic management, particularly around trimming of hedges, rural hedges, is creating a significant barrier to getting roads done. In fact, some contractors won't even do them now because they just say, look, it's too costly to get a traffic management plan in place. And so that's going to create problems for us around visibility on our roads and shading of our roads and just safety. So I'm guessing there might be, if there's an opportunity to get a global consent, particularly for around hedge trimming, would be helpful that they could apply to a certain set of standards. But the second thing is that they get the traffic management plan and they're underway, and then a traffic management audit turns up. And where does the cost lie? Because it extends the time where they've got to do the job by going to the traffic management audit. This is the feedback I'm getting. So they're saying it's already expensive exercise. If we have a traffic audit, it makes the time that we're there on site longer and the client pays more. So I guess if you guys are aware of that, I suppose you can't pre-warn them you can have an audit because that defeats the purpose. But somehow or other, just being aware of the fact of the cost implications and the people's desire to do it as cheaply as possible.
Thank you. Elizabeth?
Yeah, I was just wanting to ask if you have any indication of how popular the QR code in the council call has been to give people those updates.
Genuinely wouldn't know, and certainly haven't had any feedback. We just promote it for people. We wouldn't have a clue how many people use it or click it unless we actively went out and surveyed them. But the people I do, we talk to that do use it find it useful. Just trying to provide ease of access with things.
And just with regards to the comment of trees on shading over our roads, we do have policies about landowners planting trees on road reserve. And quite often the planting's undertaken before the monitoring's actually been completed. Is there any way to improve on that situation where people are still planting on road reserve instead of in their own property for tree shading management?
We don't actively know unless we come across it where people have planted in the road reserve. I guess it's more awareness out there. We do we are up resourcing. We have got more resource out there in terms of network. If we've now got a networking inspector, it's something we'll take on board and look at for sure.
Because it's easier to make changes when they're just being planted, I guess, but then try and deal with it later on when it becomes costly and a debate as to who actually owns the trees. So if that could be looked into, that would be appreciated as well. Thank you. Shane.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Gareth, for the report. Congratulations to the team. 6.3 water compliance and staffing levels, page 26. Transition to continuous monitoring using installed instrumentation and establishing alarm triggers. I was wondering if that, well, it's not relates to this particular issue of chlorination, water, flooding and drainage, land drainage and that type of thing. I think currently, like the likes of Taitapu, the operators get an alarm through to the phone. They get up in the middle of the night, raining, get down there, start, and it's all manual operation. Is there a move towards that type of installation of monitoring?
Taitapu has got alarm monitoring. It has got level inducers that will set off alarms, and that's currently in place. What this refers to is the establishment and the setting up of all the chlorination equipment that's around.
Right. No further questions. Can I have a mover that Part A of this report be received for information, please? Nicole and Bob. All in favour say aye. Aye. Those against? Carried. Right. Ferryman's Road. Now I have an amendment being moved or proposed to be moved with regards to Part B of this recommendation. So I'm going to. Do you want to put that amendment now?
Let's move the amendment and speak to it and then open up for debate, Madam Chair. So I propose the amendment an attempt to provide a way forward, because I perceive the current staff suggestion is going to lead us into a pathway of litigation, ossification and delay in this project. As you've seen from Mr. Ryan, there's a significant community will to see this happen. And I think you even talking about the Local Government Road Stopping Act and those kind of things gives you an indication of the depth of passion that's going to go through this. So what I'm suggesting is that we do continue to seal, and as we've already decided to do, but allow a 6-month trial period where we see are the risks perceived or otherwise through staff and Waka Kotahi concerns realised? Is it based in reality? The very strong community feeling is that after 6 months we'll come back and say, actually, chaps, none of that occurred, and this is actually a workable solution. Of course, I'll be quite happy to be brought to heel and say, no, it didn't work, and we need to close it. But I think it gives an opportunity for it to be a rational period of time where we can see, does this work, does it not work, and it provides a way forward. Because at the moment, I think we're in a stalemate, and it looks like it could go south. So that's my attempt, and particularly I think the recommendation C is important as well, because Ferryman's Road is the cycle route between Taitapu and Lincoln, and largely the road, as you would have seen when we went on the bus tour, is quite windy as it is, and to deter commuter traffic from using it as a rat run, putting it to 60 kilometres an hour would be a good outcome. So if we could do both in conjunction, that would be great. But I put the motion forward in an attempt to provide an immediate solution which provides a view for both parties to actually assess it in a proper manner. Because the challenge, as you see it, is the local community has, albeit a 2013 report, it has an engineering report. There's no report from Waka Kotahi saying why. There's nothing from the staff and saying other than an opinion. And so as it stands, and this is my what I've been told from advice through evidently Mr. Ryan, he believes he's got to lay down the Zia case if it got to the legal view of it, that we haven't got a leg to stand on. So I'm just being direct with you. I think it's a good solution that we could really move forward, and at the end of 6 months we can again address the situation with staff feedback as to how it has worked.
Before we go on any further, does this amended recommendation have a seconder? Thank you, Malcolm. Right, now it's on the table for discussion. And what I'll do is I'll actually ask Murray Washington to actually speak to the motion.
Yeah, I won't take long. There was a bit of discussion around the consultation process. I believe it was an appropriate consultation for the event. I think I won't relitigate anything that's said in the report. What I will note, and just a couple of key points, and just discussion if you have a mind to accept this amendment, just a couple of suggestions around that. So firstly, this has been around for a long time. I've spent 4 or 5 years trying to negotiate with Mr. Ryan around the residents actually paying for the ceiling, and that they couldn't get them across the line on that basis. So when the recommendation came last year to council for the annual plan process, I was very clear that it was the major reason was to reduce dust. And that was the only reason that was conveyed, and council chose to accept that and fund the ceiling. That's the first one, that's where it came from. And remembering we have agreed to seal the road, and reminding that it's coming into winter, it won't be sealed anytime soon. However, there's just one thing where I think it had been misconstrued. What we are looking at for Pyramid's Road was to physically close for the purpose of vehicular traffic and remain open for pedestrians, cyclists and equestrian. That is a significant difference than any suggestion we are going to legally close the road, which we are not. Legally close the road, and I have a lot of experience in this, does require going through a process. It can end up in the Environment Court. The road will not be legally closed. It will just be physically closed for the purposes of vehicular access. So I just want to make that point. But if you have a mind to accept a resolution, and as I noted that any sealing of the road would likely be around about September, October of this year after the formation works are done and an appropriate period. It then opens up the issues that we would have to start, and we would actually have to sit down with Waka Kotahi and have a much more robust discussion about what a sealed road would have with their state highway. And we believe they have been a wee bit vague, and we would believe that we would need to review that intersection treatment with them, because keeping it open and keeping it safe, which are two similar things, would cost considerably more than what we have budgeted for. So we do not believe we have to budget to actually seal the road and to take account of any preventative engineering works that are required to keep the road safe. So if you're of a mind to accept it, I would like to suggest that this recommendation be left until after council, the opportunity staff have had to work through with Waka Kotahi the implications of that over the next 4 to 5 months before the road is sealed. And then we would have a lot better position to come back to council and say, leaving it open to trial could work or may not work. But Waka Kotahi, it's just their intersection, it's just a state highway. We need to put their skin in the game. That was just my comment. Thanks.
With regards to those comments, the mover and the seconder to the amended recommendation, have you got any comments to make, please?
Challenge for the community is this is not a new intersection. It's already there. It's already operating on a daily basis. They don't perceive that sealing it changes the safety but one iota. It just creates a better facility, less dust, more safer road surface. And so they're very concerned as to that. I'll be blunt. They see this Waka Kotahi as a red herring. And they're not sure why, but they say, well, the road is already there. It's already being used. This is not a new road. Sealing it doesn't fundamentally alter the intersection or the use of it. And so it operates under the assumption that by sealing it, there's going to be a significant increase in traffic wanting to go in or out of that road. That's yet to be understood. I would be concerned to go back to my community, because I think the underlying assumption is that the staff will use the next 6 months to collude. I'm being direct because this is what the community will say to us, Murray. It's not a personal reflection. That the next 6 months will be spent by the staff and Waka Kotahi trying to shore up the position that's put forward in front of us today. I don't think that's what the community want to see. They want to see what I've presented to you today.
Okay, Malcolm?
Yeah, I agree with Grant, and I think basically Waka Kotahi are trying to get us to do their dirty work. A 6 metre wide bridge on a state highway carriageway with a huge amount of traffic, agricultural implements, is ridiculous in 2023. I'm of the view that I like this these amendments that are put up, because I'm of the view that once it's sealed, then Waka Kotahi are going to have to take some notice and do something about it. In the meantime, we know they won't. They're short of money. They're always short of money. They're even shorter of money with Cyclone Gabriel. There isn't a great history of collisions. The intersection further back is a scary intersection. We have to cross the main highway, as Mr. Ryan has pointed out. His alignment isn't correct. You don't come onto it square, and to fix that would be a large budget indeed. And I think this is an elegant solution to see what happens, and that's why I'm backing this amendment.
Sophie, you're next.
Nicole's next.
Oh, sorry, sorry, Nicole. Ouch. Little box microphone, by the way. I'm concerned about this whole thing. I mean, yes, it's Waka Kotahi's road and it's their intersections, but where is the information come from Waka Kotahi about what their thinking is? Like, I mean, it says that it's closure, so they're trying to close it 2003 and again in 2013. Well, surely there must be some report or something about that. I mean, and as I was just asking Mr. Ryan when he's given us our report and the traffic volumes, I mean, what are the volumes now, and what is it looking like? We need to know more about what's actually happening there. The intersection with the number of roads that are so close together cannot be it is not a very good situation as it is at the moment, full stop. And as Malcolm has just said about the roads opposite each other, I mean, we've got to remember one of those is actually to our community centre. And there's a number of times I've had meetings there and have had to sit there at that intersection trying to work out how to cross the road there. I don't know how this is going to change it, but I think there actually needs to be more assessment of it from what we haven't been given any information other than what Mr. Ryan has provided about the intersection, which they've got themselves, but it's 10 years out of date. I'm not comfortable about this whole thing whatsoever. Right. Thank you, Nicole. Sophie?
Yeah.
Kia ora.
One thing I'd just like to observe is that there is a reason why surveys are often anonymised. And I do actually find it quite disturbing that Mr. Ryan's seen fit to go and see his neighbours and ask them and probe their views. Like if it's part of a community feedback session with a workshop and everything, that's one thing. But if you've got somebody who's knocking on neighbours' doors or asking them directly to their faces, were you the one who objected? And that sort of thing.
I can assure you on that, Sophie, that it's not like that at all. They've spoken directly to each other. They're well known to each other.
Okay, that's good to know, because that did it. It was a bit disturbing thinking that. I guess another thought is, so my personal experience of that intersection is I do not like it. And that's just driving on it. I don't live there. Familiarity sometimes makes, anyway, I feel like I can appreciate on the one hand, the community's been fighting for this for years. On the other hand, in the space of that time, traffic volumes have quite probably gone up. And it's almost like we'll make a decision now. And that's almost like we're sticking it to Waka Kotahi because we can, which isn't the right thing. This isn't just about how many accidents we do or do not know whether they are there. It's like there's near misses. There's all sorts of reasons why people feel unsafe crossing that intersection. So I guess, I quite like Murray's suggestion of letting this lie on the table for a few months. If we can get some more data, as Nicole said, we've not got updated traffic numbers. I'm pretty sure 2012 was over 10 years ago. Car ownership has gone up, the size of the township's gone up, tourism traffic through to Akaroa, Little River and everything has gone up. Yeah, I would be happy to just get rid of B altogether and just come back, which I know gives everyone a bit more work to do, but at least then we've got some data to back up a decision. And lastly, I guess that would also give us time to hear the thoughts of our award-winning road safety manager.
Sorry, I've just had you've just brought into the discussion about this laying on the table. Are you asking for this to be a procedural motion that overrides the amendment moved, and then it would all have to come back to council at the next meeting to be picked up off the table if it had a seconder, or are you wanting the discussion to happen here at this time?
I have to admit, I hadn't really thought about it until this afternoon. Obviously, Grant's put forward his motion, and to be honest, that probably takes precedence. But obviously a decision needs to be made at some point. I just feel that we've not got enough data to make a good decision right now.
Thank you. Next one was, sorry, David.
Madam Chair, I think we need to remind ourselves that we've agreed that we are sealing this road.
Yes.
That's not the question. But as Murray said, we're not doing it this side of winter. So we do actually have time on our side. And we're talking about an intersection which is going, a road which is going onto a state highway. Therefore, it's important that we do hear from Waka Kotahi. And what I would suggest is we ask staff for the next meeting to prepare a report, to communicate with Waka Kotahi and to prepare some information. Firstly, what additional work needs to be done? Street lighting, for example, on the corners, I think will need to be addressed. We need an assessment of the costs because we have a budget to do the sealing work. We don't have a budget to do anything more than that. We also need to understand from Waka Kotahi where any funding contribution may come from them, given that, as I say, it is going onto their state highway. So that would be my suggestion, is comfortable with the recommendation, but request staff report back at our next meeting, which I believe is in 6 weeks' time, addressing those issues.
So just for clarification, you are quite happy with B, with the amendment and C, but you would like to add to C that the staff report back at the next meeting.
Madam Chair, I don't think B is the current recommendation. I think that will be as a result of what you do the next meeting, because if you agree that there are no safety issues, or if Waka Kotahi come back and give us the green light, we will proceed theoretically at no additional cost. So we won't need to worry about a trial for 6 months, because I think that will give permanency to it.
Okay, given that's a staff report, and I have other people councillors wanting to speak on this issue, I will let the other councillors speak, and then I will see if there's an opportunity for a further amendment at your suggestion to be picked up from the table with regards to the process. So the next one I have is Lydia. Sam, it's you. Sorry, not Sam. Sorry, Lydia, you're next, Lydia.
Yeah, Sample's ranked, doesn't he? I'm just bearing in mind that intersection and looking at the pictures and everything. I don't think that you would actually get a lot of modern day machinery around that corner. So I think we really do need to look at maintaining Perryman's Road as an opening for a bypass. If you are looking at, especially with HT moving machinery around, there's no way that you would get a 25-metre truck around that Lincoln Taitapu Road. So where else do they go? Where's the bypass? Yeah, so I do support B.
So you're supporting B, the amendment. Okay. Right, Sam.
Thank you. So at the moment, this isn't an amendment. This is actually the motion that's on the table.
You're speaking to the motion. No,
No,
the amendment is on the table, right? Because that was put up before the approval, the recommendation for B. We haven't voted on it. We've got a mover and a seconder, and we haven't voted on the amended
No, so just a point of order around that.
So I need to deal with that one. I need to deal with that, and then with David's suggestion, is there a mover and a seconder for a change and introducing a new amendment? So that's the process.
So just a point of order around the structure of an amendment or the substantive motion, because we didn't have a mover and a seconder for any recommendation, and this is the first thing that's been put up. This is the substantive motion.
Yes.
We're not talking about, no one has amended anything. All we've got is the substantive motion that's here.
That's fine.
And so just our language would just need to think so that it's clear what we know, that we know what we're talking about. There might be an amendment which would change what's there, but this is the motion. So speaking to the things that are here, I love trials. I think trials are a great way to be able to figure out whether something works without being too definitive about having it right the first time round. The reason that we got into this was dust. I agree with Murray. It was dust. And 2012 was dust, and 2015 it was dust, and it's still dust. That is on all of our gravel roads. But the decision to seal it, we made ahead of all this information, and so we're actually doing this now because we rushed the decision to go for the sealing. So it's good. I think now getting to this point, we don't need to rush this piece because we have got time over the next 2 or 3 months to seek the right information, to put in place the right trial so that we get the right data at the end of it. So I would support this line on the table for 3 months. That would then come back and allow information around traffic numbers, preferred engineering options, speed limit options, Waka Kotahi input, all of that to be fed back to us. It wouldn't delay the project at all because the project over that time won't be happening anyway. And then when we get to this point, we can actually say, well, this is the way that we can see it happening. Because I'd rather we've made a good decision here, and I think we need that info. I feel like the clarity around whether we're closing the road or not was confused today. We're not closing the road. We're just thinking about who uses the road. And I think the impacts for cyclists, because so much of the cycling community has talked to us year on year about links between Lincoln and Taitapu, we actually need to think about the use of the road further up as well. And so I agree the 60-kilometre grant is a good thing to think about how we make the road safer. But I think we need to understand those impacts of what flows through before we jump into decisions. So I don't think we lose anything by waiting 3 months, and it might help us have a far better trial at the end of it. Thanks.
Okay, so that's not. So you're asking. You're not exactly asking.
So I'll move that to stay on the table for 3 months to seek further staff clarification around the matters raised in the meeting.
I'll second that.
Okay. I've got a mover and a seconder for this laying on the table. I will actually take that recommendation now. Can I ask all of those in favour that this lay on the table for the next 3 months, moved by Sam and seconded by Sophie? Raise your hands, please. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7. Those against? 1, 2. Do you want those recorded, please?
Recorded and to speak to it too. I don't see any. I guess it's a procedural motion, but
it is.
I can't speak to it. That's what,
Yeah,
that's the case.
sorry, that's lay on the table, so it is a procedural motion, so, yeah, so unfortunately. So this, I will expect, this report with the closure of the intersection to come back with 3 months' time to this committee.
I think I would ask Madam Chair that the direction from this meeting is that it's more about keeping the intersection open rather than going to Waka Kotahi with the closure, a mandate on your mind, because that's not the will of the community.
And
the view of the community was they wanted dust suppression and safety improved, not stopping vehicular access. And I want to make that extremely clear to staff that if they take a different view, they're not taking the community's view with them.
okay, thank you. Thank you for that. Thanks for the discussion on that item. Sorry, you're gonna have to bear with me. I've just been locked out. So the next item on the agenda is asset management. Murray England, thank you.
All right, good afternoon. So we'll move into some lighter matters, Three Waters reform and chlorine exemptions. So my report starts on the public agenda, page 43, and it does cover a number of topics, and we'll focus on Three Waters and chlorine exemptions. So Three Waters reform, this is section 7. So on the 13th of April 2023, the government announced a reset to the Three Waters reform, which is now referred to as affordable water reforms. So from the government's commentary, the changes are designed to strengthen the connection between local communities and their water service provider while ensuring affordability of services for households. So that's the government's narrative there. Section 7.1, there's a number of key changes that they're proposing. I'll just cover 2 of those. The first one is the number of water entities. So currently we've got 67 councils. The original proposal was to amalgamate the provision of water services down to 4 public entities, and the reset has now increased that to 10. So just in section 7.1, there's a map of New Zealand, and so we're part of entity I now. We're part of entity D. 4. So that covers the West Coast and the Canterbury areas. The other key change is over the page 45, which is the establishment date. So instead of coming into effect mid-2024, all entities now need to be established by the mid-2026. So in effect, there's a couple of years potential for delay or deferral. For Selwyn, the date has not yet been decided about when our entities will be formed. That's something that is yet to be determined. Section 7.2 sorts out the reform program. So obviously the DA is working to set up these entities. And because of this reset, there has been a reset in that reform program as well. Over the page, the main change for staff, we're probably a little bit relieved to have a bit of a break because we've been answering quite a few RFIs over the last few months, years. So it has been challenged, and so we are pleased about that respite. But one of the key impacts now for us is that historically we weren't going to provide for Three Waters in the long-term plan coming up in 2024, whereas now we have to cover those Three Waters for at least the first 2 years. So that's the main change for staff at the moment. So then I'll move on to the Kaihart's chlorination exemption. That's in section 8. So council remember way back now, 23rd of June 2022, it's almost a year, council made the first submission, in fact the first submission in New Zealand for a chlorine exemption for the Kaihart settlement. On Thursday, the 27th of April 2023, council received via email the final exemption decision from Taumata Arawai, and that decision was to decline our application for a chlorine exemption. That was approved by Ray McMillan, who is the head of regulatory at Taumata Arawai. I do note, though, that in their report, it says that if the matters in paragraphs 3 and 4 of the exemption decision paper were addressed and suitable conditions imposed, the exemption team considers likely it could recommend a decision to grant the residual disinfection exemption. So I suppose that's so the outcome was a no, but there was a no, but if you do something, then you might be able to resolve that. So staff have recommended the next steps. Actually, before I do that, I have included an appendix to the report, a table which outlines those matters in sections 3 and 4 of Taumata ROI's decision, and then staff's comments next to them. In that table, we've put in some asterisks where we've actually covered those matters off. So we had the draft decision. Staff had 20 working days to provide comments back to Taumata, which we did. In those responses we made on the right-hand side, but the final decision paper doesn't appear to fully take into account those. So, council, also staff's recommendation to council, there's sort of in two parts. One is that we ask for an internal review from Taumata Arowai, and we'll outline again those items which we have actually addressed from the original discussions. And then depending on the outcome of that final decision is to then make further changes and then resubmit again. Some of the main changes that we've done is around virus protection. So the drinking water standards doesn't actually cover virus protection in the water supply. That was one of the main issues that Taumata Arowai brought up as a concern. Chlorination does kill viruses, and so that's why they like to see chlorination in new supplies. However, the alternative route would be to install a larger size UV treatment system and run it, which costs more energy, but run it at a higher intensity to get virus protection. So staff have done that. We've installed a larger UV system on that Rakai Hut supply, and we are running it now to our best of our ability as a compliant system. And we've had ESR come and review that and provide us a report. So that will all be packaged up and provided to Taumata Arowai as part of our request for an internal review. I think I'll leave it there, but I'm happy to answer any questions. The rest of the report talks about groundwater levels and the work program for the asset management team, but you can read through that at your leisure.
Thanks, Murray. Any questions on the report? Sam.
I've got a question to the room, and it's around the delay or the option to be able to delay the transition to the new water entities. A lot of the conversation around the country has been about how obviously the better off funding and changes and things that's there, but actually there's some big advantages with being one of the first entities set up rather than the last entity that's set up. We already know that staff numbers aren't what they need to be across the country, so actually the last entity to set up will pick up the dregs of staff left over, albeit they'll also get all the best staff from their local situation in a spot like Selwyn. But the attraction of being in the first half, not necessarily the first one set up, as opposed to the last one that's set up, I think would put our community and our entity in a much stronger place. It would also secure the CEO and executive management for that entity in a way that the last entity set up will have a different pool of people to draw on in that space. So I'm kind of just wanting to know how you feel about, at the moment it's not clear what the route will be to get to the date that we will finally set up. And we don't need to say that our preference is 2024 still, but I think we should be thinking about what does early 2025 look like rather than leaving it to the last minute in 2026. And some direction from you on that would be helpful, so that when I'm talking to other mayors, because we're going to need to work with our neighbours and the West Coast on this, we've got a feel for where our preferred position is to start. The other option is to sit back and do nothing and wait and see what happens and hope for the best. And that just hasn't really been Selwyn's way. So I'd much rather have a proactive stance around trying to set up the best entity that we could with the best staff possible, and give our staff within this organisation the opportunity to think early on about an outcome of certainty around where they are now, rather than being questioned about moves all over the country for other jobs as they come up. So I think our continuity of service to our community would be strengthened in being in the first half rather than the last half of entity. So just keen to see some feedback. I don't know, Murray, whether you've got any thoughts on that as well, but I need some direction. Otherwise, we just end up in a space where no one talks about it and the government ends up telling us what needs to happen. And I don't think that's the right outcome.
Yep.
Gee, I think it's probably a political decision. I don't know if I need to step too much into that. The only thing I would say is that there remains some uncertainty in terms of what the government will look like post the elections, and National's policy on three waters is quite different to Labor's. And so it's not for me to comment which one we'll get into, who knows that. But I suppose having a set up date postponed slightly is helpful, because we're not sort of rushing towards a transition and then have a political change or not, and then having to reset again. So I suppose let's take that into mind. Yeah.
Sophie. Yeah, I wasn't going to talk about that, but I guess my thought on that one is, as Murray said, it's probably a bit of a political hot potato. There is an general election coming up, and the other part is probably putting the horse before the cart. You kind of need, I know you've got relationships to build on this particular matter, which obviously there are differing views around the South Island, around Three Waters. So I guess you probably need to build the relationship with that sort of thing in mind first, rather than setting a date. And you know your fellow mayors far better than I do. So. I was going to ask, there's a section in here around the Rakaya Hut's response around the Treaty of Waitangi and Te Mana o Te Wai statements and everything like that. And it's noted that obviously we've got a relationship agreement with Te Taumata now. Obviously we've got a lot of water work going on with them. Do you think, I'm just wondering, on top of the various infrastructure work that is obviously going on, staff are doing everything they can. This is one thing that requires something from somebody else who may not be in a position to give it right now. And I'm just wondering, is it worth submitting? I mean, I definitely think we should ask for a review, but is it worth doing that before we have a definitive signed off statement in that regard? Because if it's important as far as the exemption process is concerned, that's leaving even a single tick box unchecked is just giving them an excuse to go, no, you haven't done enough yet.
Yeah, that's a good point. I suppose our strategy, if you like, is to try and get a final report, and even if it is still decline, the matters for consideration to be resolved will be a lot reduced, or a lot further reduced. So then we've got a real clear picture of what we have to achieve to get that exemption. In terms of Runanga's point of view, I can't remember, it might have been the 2018 LTP, but Taumata Runanga made a submission on the chlorination matter. It might have been 2021, I'm not sure when it was, sorry. But very clearly said their preference was to remain chlorine free, so we can use that as a starting point. But I do agree we should make it very clear, and any information we give back to Taumata that further conversations need to occur. Yeah.
Sorry, the next person is Murray Washington.
Yeah, just wanted to comment back on the same point around the entities. And it's interesting with the setting up of what we now call Entity I, which is Canterbury West Coast, and I do wonder whether any of the work that Canterbury Mayors did model is actually going to have any benefit moving forward. Feedback I've had, just purely for feedback, is because there is a significant number of councils belonging to councils for local democracy in the Canterbury region. They weren't rushing to be first. And the second one, as I talked to the West Coast this morning, I think they're very excited to be part of the Canterbury group, providing the leg up is going to give them over there. And they are very poorly resourced. Just a feedback.
Okay.
Two questions. One is about the federal funding, which we've lost the second tranche of. A large portion of the first tranche is going to the Lincoln Town Centre Master Plan. Just a question around, obviously we won't be able to deliver the whole project. Are we scoping up what we can deliver on? The community is really, really keen to see what will be delivered, what possibly can be delivered. And if they've got any input into it before it starts getting the diggers start going in the road. So guess we're just sort of signalling, is that coming or soon, or what's the plan with that?
Yeah, currently in my basket, the $5.1 million of government money that's been allocated for a bit of funding for Lincoln Town Centre isn't going to go very far on a project that's currently cost estimated to be potentially up to the $40 million mark. So, and the loss of tranche 2 gives you does prevent that ability just to move on. And so it'll become an LTP discussion, I believe, a significant LTP discussion. At this stage, we the application basically started at the West Belt Gerard Street intersection, traffic lights, and move all down as far as you go down to Kildare Street. We'll have surveys starting this week. We're going to survey the whole block from the Springs Junction right down to Kildare Street, one go, because it's a damn sight cheaper to do it that way. So that's the first step. We're working through scoping of design plan to concept, but by the time, and we've got $1.2 million committed, you've got to do the preparatory work first. So there's a significant discussion have to be had around upgrading underground services first and remediation of pavement. So it's a wee way step before you get to any car park, white markings or anything else. So we'll just have to work through that program and come back to you at regular intervals.
That's the key, I think, is that we need to start communicating to the community what is actually happening and what possibly might be delivered in what time frame. So this is a bit of a timer, because at the moment there's sort of an expectation there's going to be an all singing, all dancing solution coming, but it may be more modest. So just I think some feedback or regular updates in the cell times.
We'll make that, and I think I've seen that comment elsewhere, we'll make that a regular part of these reports.
The second question, just to Murray, I guess, is around the Freshwater Act and the 2.4 introduction. Are we going to have a paper about how that's going to affect our groundwater supply, if at all? I mean, there's two different interpretations. One, that it's only on surface water, and the second interpretation is it's surface and groundwater. So if it's groundwater, it may impact our drinking water supply significantly. Is that coming to us, or is that something you're comfortable with?
No, that's something I'm comfortable reporting back at the next meeting. Yep, so I'll make that a point. We'll talk about along with infrastructure and growth planning.
Thank you. Elizabeth?
Hi, you made a comment about putting through another submission just to ascertain how much more is needed to be done to achieve their extremely high levels for an exemption. But surely that's information that they would have readily available for you to access prior to starting to make work improvements?
So this is around the chlorine exemption. Yeah, so Taumata Arawai has a whole lot of matters which need to be considered, but they haven't provided us with any levels or triggers or targets that we have to achieve. So Taumata Arawai haven't said, for example, for water loss, that you have to have water loss below a certain percentage. So it said you have to provide low water loss, and we need to be satisfied that it's appropriate. So there's actually no targets for us to aim for, which is it's frustrating in some ways. So my comment about going back to them the first time would be, at the moment, their decision covers a whole lot of points which need to be resolved. But start believe that those points have already been, a lot of those points, if not all of them, have been resolved. And so we just want to make sure that gets tidied up. And so that the final decision only has those which are outstanding, and then we'll go to rectify those and then resubmit. I think it's important, once we finish this process, and assuming we get an exemption, there will be a report coming back to council saying, well, we've got the exemption, we have made the grade to have a chlorine-free supply at Rakai Huts. Is that something you want to do? And I know what the answer is going to be, but that's the question we need to address. And then furthermore, now we know what the target levels are or the quality of the supply is, what is the cost to achieve that across the other suppliers? We've had estimates in the past, but I think this will focus our minds and we can have that discussion again.
Okay, thank you. I have two points of clarification from you, Murray. The first one is about the Taumata Arawai decision on Rakai Huts, and I look at all the extras and I actually see at the bottom that you were advised that Tamata Arawai was advised of these items and feedback in a draft report in December 2022, which, if this is correct, raises a real concern about who's actually reading the reports, how are they being understood, and sending them back with regards to the continual process actually poses a lot of questions on capacity to deliver. And I'll just leave that at there, but this is what it is quite clearly showing, that there is going to be some real issues going forward with regards to understanding or communicating what needs to happen to actually meet those particular standards from councils plus any of the entities as well. So I'd just like to highlight that. The other is briefly, I do have a copy of the 2016 Lincoln Structure Plan in hard copy, perfectly bound if anyone wants to actually build on that one. So I just want to highlight how long this project's been going on. We finally got some funding, and now the funding's basically been pulled away from us. So pretty disappointed, along with the rest of the council, I could say, and staff. So just thank you very much for trying. Okay. Now, can I have a mover and a seconder that we accept that recommendation? Oh, sorry, do you want to ask a question?
Yeah, sorry, I just sort of that popped up, but you've answered it already, Murray. It was just around clarity of information back from Tamata Arawai, which you don't particularly have. And then you've answered the second question around the rest of the assets, the rationalisation across what it's going to cost to get them up to an acceptable standard, which we still don't know. So that, because the question continues to remain. And secondly, to Sam's question around first half or second half, I think we need to lead the way on it, and I would support getting in first, being part of the first tranche.
And just with regards to that question that you actually posed, Sam, do you want a report to come back to us at our next meeting dealing with that, or?
There's not really enough information in the system to know when that's going to be. The government might end up telling us these are some specific dates you can look to aim for, then we'll need a discussion. But it's just helpful if I have that steered from the room when I'm discussing with other mayors and Mana Whenua about when that timing could look for in the first half rather than the second half. That just gives me a steer, so thank you. Okay.
Right, mover and seconder for the report, please. Malcolm, Lydia. All in favour say aye. Aye. Those against? Carried. Right. Next report is emergency management. Al Lawn. Thank you.
Afternoon. Yeah. Afternoon, Mr. Lawn.
Yes, I will be happy to take it as read. Is there any highlighted issues that you'd actually like to bring to our attention? And then I will ask the councillors if they have their ready questions. Nothing. Okay, councillors, any questions? I've got Sam.
Oh, just to say I was at the Relay for Life event 2 weekends ago, and the response team had a crew that were there. And it was great the way that the team interact with the community, make the presence feel normal, but also turn up in a uniform that means you know what they're about, and it generates other discussions about emergency preparedness. So just to say thanks for what you do with the team and encourage that continued visibility in the community.
Right, Sophie.
Yeah, Kira. I just wanted to ask if there's any more information around it. There's a mention of a digital equity project for resilience, and also training and support structures for Ngāti Porou. And just wondered if there's anything more you can share about that.
So Ali is working on the digital equity at the moment. I haven't heard from her for a wee while. She's been through some family issues with a very sick niece in ICU, and also has been flat out working with recovery in the North Island and also with the Starling
putting it into 18 Marae in the South Island for Ngāi Tahu. So she's working with Ngāi Tahu, as I've talked to here. So I can get her to give me an update and put that in the next report if you would like.
Okay.
And in regards to Ngāti Pararu, that was after a conversation I had at a week-long training in Wellington and caught up with them, and I have put them onto Jared Moore, who is one of our controllers, but also a well-recognised trainer. So he is working with them on a community training package. So very pleased about that. It's nice to be able to help them out.
Shane?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Al, to you and your team, and well done. I received some communication from some Auckland councillors up there for the efforts that your team have put through to them, and they want us to pass that through, particularly to Ali. The digital equity stuff I see here, continued support to Ngāi Tahu with Starlink, and that's another, again, Ali project that she's working through and on. The potential for residents within the district to be part or wider network, perhaps throughout the district. And I'll leave that with you. Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks. Yeah, we're pretty passionate about making sure that we put our time and effort where our mouth is in regards to our partnership with Ngāi Tahu. So we value that.
Elizabeth?
Just wanted to know if you're able to just give me a bit of a rundown on the digital equity project, exactly what that encompasses, just a rough indication.
So I'll get a report from Ali that cover that off. It's DIA funding that came out of COVID, and she's working with Sue with community resilience. So I can make sure you get the right information with the next report if you like.
Okay, thank you. No further questions. Do I have a mover and a seconder? Thanks, Shane. Thanks, Malcolm. All in favour say aye that this report be received.
Aye.
Those against? None. Carried. Right, the next one is tab 12, open spaces and facilities, page 79 in the book. Are you going to do that one, Murray?
I will do it. I'll introduce it.
Okay, thanks. Murray's going to introduce that one.
Yeah, as we now that Kamal's on board, we'll have a wee look at restructuring these reports so that they fit into more logical places. Particularly a number of them will move into the operational delivery around open spaces. I only want to make have one comment. In fact, I'm going to pass over to Cam Moore in regarding to the TIF application number 7, which was submitted on Monday. So, Cam, do you want to give a bit of word what that includes, what that covers?
May I ask you to come up to the front, please? Thank you.
So the TIF round 7 applications were put in on Monday. The only project we're putting forward at this stage is the Kuri public toilet. We had a look at quite a few other options which came through from you guys, which was really good. But that seemed to be the main one, which we had quite a bit of feedback and sort of support for. And we've received a email back from NB saying they've received our application. Probably one thing to think about with this round of applications is there's going to be a lot of focus on the cyclone damage that happened. So there'll be a lot of support more for the projects in those areas than ours. So fingers crossed we'll get some funding, but if not, well, I think the toilet we're going to look at, we'll put into the LTP if we don't get the funding through TIF.
I think I just had one question around my recommendation of the bird height. Would you have any commentary around that at all?
Yeah, we had a look at that one in terms of funding as well. Derek is looking through Derek Hayes is looking through some of the background information because I think we had some sort of contract in place around that. So we want to make sure we have the details that confirmed before we put anything else forward.
Appreciate it.
Further questions, so I'll have a mover and a seconder for the open spaces and facility report. Sophie and Malcolm, all those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Those against, none, carried. Thanks very much. The next is a resolution to exclude the public under section 48(1)A with regards to the Green Park Hall. So do I have a mover that we go into public excluded? Thank you, Nicole and Sophie. All in favour?
Aye.
All in favour say aye.
Aye.
Carried. We'll just wait now until we go offline. So thank you, public, for listening to our Transport and Infrastructure Committee meeting.